I'm Ivy Ross, Vice President of Hardware Design at Google, and I'm here with Design Milk for DMTV Milkshake. And I'm going to answer a bunch of questions, and I don't know what they are, but this one looks cool. And it says, what is the one common misconception about your job at Google? I would say the fact that people think that I personally have designed all the products at Google. So that is not correct. I am the Vice President of Design, and I'm lucky enough to be what I call the orchestra conductor of many talented designers. So I hold the vision for the design and review the designs, but I am not the sole designer of all the products at Google. Okay, another question here is, Google's collaborative exhibition at Milan Design Week in 2019, A Space for Being, focused on the relationship between design and neuroaesthetics. What are neuroaesthetics? Have you been continuing your neuroaesthetic research since the exhibition? So neuroaesthetics is the science that is proving that things like design, architecture, art, dance, all have an effect on your brain, which affects your body. So things that we knew as designers intuitively, that everything we do matters, is now being proved by science that those choices we make actually make a difference in how people feel. So it's super exciting and validating. And as designers, we use it to really ensure that we're thinking about, when we design a product, we're thinking about the color, the texture, all those things that are aesthetic that our brain will pick up on. Okay, another one is, your father was an industrial designer for Raymond Loewy, and later he redesigned the traditional supermarket. Can you talk about his work and how it influences your work today? So yes, my dad designed for Raymond Loewy, very famous industrial designer in the 50s. And he taught me how to see things beyond the way they appear to be. So he would say, Ivy, look up at that light fixture, look at the way it's connected. What can you learn from that connection, and how can you extrapolate that information and think about something else that might be connected that way? So he really taught me how to think abstractly and apply my learnings to looking at the world through a different lens. He also, when the question says he redesigned the traditional supermarket, he would find things that hadn't been well designed. So for example, a supermarket in those days was not aesthetic. In the windows, it just said, buy eggs, milk, with big signs in the window. But it was not a beautiful place to shop. It was very transactional. And I learned a lot from him because I remember he said, what category hadn't been redesigned yet? And he approached a supermarket owner and said, don't pay me my fee. Let me prove to you, if I redesign the store, I can prove to you that people will stay in the store longer and therefore spend more money if I make it a beautiful place to stay and an aesthetic place. Because in those days, supermarkets were you didn't think about the aesthetics. So as a little girl, I watched him create these opportunities for himself. So for example, he actually worked in the early days on the food emporium model, but he color-coded all the aisles of the supermarket instead of having signage. And instead of the word meats, he commissioned artist friends of his to do cows in a valley. So sure, and he changed the lighting, not to be bad fluorescent lighting. So sure enough, the store owner was really happy. and people spent more time and more money, and then he got paid his fee. So I think what he also taught me is if you have passion and conviction around something, go for it, and the rewards will come later. They always come. Let's see. How do you recharge outside of work? I plug myself into a cord. No, you know, it's interesting because work to me, work and play, luckily, are fairly similar. The boundaries are breaking down. But what I love to do is, I have a house by the water. So to recharge, I love to take a walk by the ocean and the beach, because I think nature is the most neuroaesthetic place. Again, neuroaesthetics being things that liven your senses. So I feel like I recharge by alivening my senses. And I also study sound and vibration. So whether that's using gongs and sound or walking by the ocean, it's all about charging my senses. Color plays a huge role in the products you develop at Google. Can you talk about your team's color selection process and what factors you consider when selecting a new color to work with? Yes, color does play a huge role. We look at the trends, you know, every year there are color trends, and I believe they're based on often on societal needs. So when society is a little depressed, you'll find that bright colors come into popularity, versus when society needs a pause or a cleansing, you'll find more neutrals and whites. So I have a very talented team of color, material, and finish designers, and together they look for what the trends are for a future year, and then they make a composite color chart and of all the colors that they feel are coming into play. And then we really look at what's appropriate for what category of product. So even though a color might be popular, it might not be appropriate for a product in the home versus a wearable. So it's both looking at what we believe the bigger trends are in society, but it's also then looking at how appropriate it is for the particular product we're working with. I think we have just a little bit more time. You are an artist as well as a designer. What are your thoughts on the relationship between art and design? You know, design is solving problems within a barrier or constraint. And I think there's an art to doing that. So I feel like, and you know, art is really a way to creatively express yourself. So I feel like the two are very connected, because I'd like to believe that myself and I inspire my team to bring an artful way of solving the design challenges that we have ahead of us. More? What have been some of the major challenges when designing physical products for a company that started out completely digital? You know, Google having started out as a digital or software company, they were very used to iterating, throwing out new software products every 2 weeks and iterating on it. And with hardware, you really can't do that. It's really hard, and it's a much longer development cycle. So it really was a change in the culture to think strategically 18 months to 2 years ahead. And once you create hardware, you really can't iterate on it. You can iterate on the software, but you can't change it. So it's a much different mindset, which was a challenge at first, But that's why we have a specific hardware group who all have experience with that mindset.